Hey everybody, it's Adam Farkas. Welcome to another ODWire video. Now, as you know, on ODWire, we speak endlessly and argue endlessly about equipment for your office. Whether it's the latest hardware or software or instruments, people will talk about the various minutiae of this new technology. I've seen people even argue about things like what computer chips they're using and what version of their operating systems. But what's interesting is when it finally comes time to make a purchase decision and someone buys, you never hear anything else. What do you get discussion-wise after that? Crickets. You never hear how these systems are actually implemented after someone puts them in their office. Or at the very least, people will talk about, hey, I bought this, but they don't actually explain to you how they implemented it. So today we're going to try something different. And we have two experts who have implemented iRefract by Luneau Technology. And this is a next generation system, and as you can see up on your screen right now, it has a lot of advanced features. And I'm not the person to tell you all about them, but these two folks are. And first up, we have Dr. Rasa Tamulavichus, who is an optometrist and co-owner of Big City Optical, which is a growing independent multi-location clinic in the greater Chicagoland area. And today we also have with us Melissa Renfro, who is a clinical application specialist with Luneau Technology. And she's both a consultant and trainer for customers who purchase instruments from Luneau and helps doctors set up and integrate equipment into their practice's workflow. And Melissa and Dr. Rasa have worked together, so I thought it was great that we could have them both here today to discuss their experience. So Dr. Rasa, Melissa, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Adam.
So I guess, Dr. Rasa, just give me a little, background. Tell me about your practice and where you practice and a little bit about how your office runs.
Absolutely. Well, first, I've been practicing optometry for the last 16 years, and a lot of it was in a private practice setting. Currently, I am in a private practice that is spanning over 9 locations throughout the Chicagoland area. I started that practice 3 years ago, and most of those starts were cold starts. It is definitely a challenge, as most of my colleagues know, but it's been very exciting to be part of the private practice growth and to have a optical company like that.
Back up for a second. You just said you did multiple cold starts in the last 3 years?
Yes.
Wow. And what was that like? I'm just curious because I know that anyone who's watching this knows how difficult doing one office is. What was multiple location experience like?
Well, my first one, of course, I made the most mistakes, and that was a very expensive learning experience. And I knew that in order to succeed, I have to improve upon those. So that's how the second one was born. And I really enjoyed the experience. I have the energy for it, and I have a great partner who is my husband. And we teamed up to create a team that would allow us to expand to that many locations.
And so I guess some of the other challenges that you might have had, around multiple locations, and we've actually seen this on ODWire, when we started, when my father's practice started, everything was on paper, right? So when they had multiple
Yes.
locations, they were functionally separate, right? They had no idea what each one was doing across town.
Yes.
So what about you guys? How has it worked for you now, starting up brand new practices in this sort of age of IT?
Well, we definitely leverage technology to allow us to be able to communicate with multiple offices on our team to help us assist and provide that consistent customer care that is our goal.
And so circling back to what we're going to talk about in the beginning, the iRefract system, what sort of drew you to that in the beginning, and how did you decide on that?
So for me, the biggest intriguing factor, I would say, was that I can take the refraction outside of my exam room.
And so when you actually decided to implement it, and so this is sort of as people are seeing it up on the screen right now, I'm actually showing people what iRefract looks like in the different pieces of the system. Now, to me, this looks rather complicated. It looks like the 3 parts there are communicating by Wi-Fi, and there's a whole lot of stuff going on. So when you decided to actually implement this, did you dip your toe in the water? Did you set it up yourself? Did you unbox the thing yourself? Or how did it all work?
No, so Melissa was a very, very big help. She was the implementation specialist, and I see her as a partner in this. And she was able to really kind of work with me on my busy schedule and help me implement the entire process and adopt it and teach me and my staff how to use it properly.
Right. So Melissa, so I guess you came into the picture as soon as the decision was made that this is what the practice was going to implement. Is that where you came on board?
Yeah, actually, I met Dr. Rasa and her husband. We did a demo of the iRefract so they could actually see it, and they each got a chance to run it and everything. And then my tech support went out and I actually installed the table, built the table, installed the devices, and hooked them up. And then I come out and I worked with Dr. Rasa to teach all her staff and her doctors how to use the iRefract properly.
Right, because at this point, Dr. Rossi, you must have a pretty big staff across all these offices, right?
I do, yeah. I think as as a private practice owner, that the hardest thing is to create a team. And because I cannot be in multiple locations, I need consistency. And so for me, we have a total of 8 full-time doctors, and each location has a staff of at least 3 or 4 other associates.
Wow. So Melissa, your job was to actually get these folks up to speed and make sure they were using the device properly?
Exactly. So all the technicians and the doctors, I would first run them through as a patient so they see what the patient experience is, and then I would teach them how to use the device. And they've been doing a great job. And now we also have online video trainings that they'll get a certificate once they take that. And so that helps her onboard new staff. They can take the lesson first, and then if they need additional, I can come out and train them.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because, so much of this high-tech stuff is online now, right? So can you do a lot of stuff virtually with folks, especially in sort of the age of COVID that we're living in right now?
Absolutely. Yeah. Once, in fact, Dr. Rasa and I did her first training on the iRefract virtually.
Hmm.
So, and that was a learning experience. So, yeah, I can teach people and train them how to use all our devices remotely.
Right. And speaking of which, you mentioned that you just trained remotely. Do you need some sort of exotic internet into the office? What do people usually have if they want to start working remotely? Is it just, typical cable connection? What do people need?
High-speed internet.
Yep. So just plain old, call your cable company, get them to come in. You don't need anything really
Yes.
super exotic though, right?
No.
So, I mentioned when we first started here that this is sort of the next generation platform, right? Next generation refraction, as they say. As I put up a little video about that. So what does that actually mean practically in your practice, this next generation refraction?
As I was saying, the most intriguing part of implementing this device for me was to allow me to spend more time with the patient when I can have a refraction delegated to my technicians. The reason being is because I don't see me doing the refraction and building the relationship with the patient. I believe that there is perceived and unperceived reasons why the patient comes to see me. So for me to take the results of the refraction and sit down with the patient and have this debriefing, very problem focused and patient focused, I should say, is where I actually form the bond with the patient, and that creates loyalty and creates continuous care for me, where the patient remembers me more than just a gatekeeper to their prescription.
And I wonder also if having this sort of device in place gives you a little more consistent outcome across your doctors as well. So even if a patient doesn't actually see you personally when they come for a visit, if the exam isn't more consistent across visits.
Absolutely. I think, with my 16 years of practice, I understand, as many of my colleagues, that developing the art of refraction is quite difficult. You need to balance the clarity and comfort for the patient in order to have a very good outcome. And I would say that this device gives me the results that would be equivalent to my 16 years of practice.
Right.
Every time, regardless of who is operating it.
So it's very consistent over and over again. And again,
Yes.
that has to do with and again, I'm showing people the video of how the system actually works. So it seems like it's pretty much point and shoot once you get the patient into the device.
Yes.
Great. And so one other question that people always have in devices like this has to do with their patient flow. Now, obviously, you were starting from scratch, right, in your location. So this is kind of a great situation, right, because you could just start from scratch in the beginning and implement the thing away. How many patients do you think you can see with the device additionally versus sort of the old school way of refracting? Have you done any measurements of the sort of patient throughput?
I can see a patient every 30 minutes. And for me, before the 15 minutes were doing refraction. Now that the refraction just enters into my room seamlessly via my EMR, um, I I really spend a lot more time talking to the patient about things that they came in with questions on. So if there is certain unperceived needs that the patient have, let it be dry eye, let it be how they're seeing due to certain medical condition, it gives me a lot more time to discuss in that shorter time frame. Of 30 minutes than I ever used to have before, and I don't feel rushed.
Right. And I should not fail to mention that the iRefract is an aberrometer too, right? So you're getting a lot of extra data that you may not have gotten before. And I wonder if that sort of helped you when you're talking to the patient as well. Talk to them about things like getting a second pair, right, or night driving and things of that nature.
Absolutely. And I'm not sure how it is actually calculated, but I do get two comparisons for the vision for daytime vision and nighttime vision. And I'm baffled by how the engineers come up with something like that, but I really do appreciate that. And it helps me to talk to the patient about the aberrations that exist and degrade their vision depending on the lighting.
Now, Visionix had this little thing, if you go to their website, they talk about this thing called smart consulting. And I can even put a little bit up on the screen for people to show, but I think you were one of the first practices to actually engage in this. So you want to tell everyone a little bit about what smart consulting is?
Well, for telehealth, like Dr. Rasa
Yeah.
was in one office and she needed to consult with a patient in another office. And so she actually was able to get on Zoom, look at all the information on the patient, advise them, and then, the patient's happy and they're gone out of the office and she didn't actually physically see them. And I know ultimately she's hoping that each of her doctors, ODs, will be able to do 3 offices, through that telehealth platform, consulting with patients who they're not even face to face with.
So this is actually an important point. So telehealth's become like a huge thing these days, right? And people are kind of wondering, how do I implement it? What do I do? So with this system, are you saying that you use Zoom just for the video component of it, and it's very easy to sort of share the data back and forth in a HIPAA compliant way?
Absolutely. So all of my data is stored in my medical records in my EMR. And when the eye refract is performed, I get information on patients' uncorrected vision, their vision with their habitual RX, their wavefront technology driven results, and then also the final refraction. All of that comes through to me immediately. So if I'm seeing a patient in another office and I can take a look under my patient, under EMR, what's happening, all of that information is seamlessly traveling for me to be able to see it, along with other data gathered that we take a look on retinal imaging, OCT, slit lamp digital cameras and my biography. And I'm able to assess the patient in a way that I believe is a lot more superior exam than what traditionally I performed in the past.
And I'm kind of wondering too, from the patient's perspective, what do they think of all this, right? Is there a wow factor when they come in and do it, or is it just like, whatever, it's old hat, everyone's got, cell phones these days, a tick, we're not impressed by it, or are patients actually impressed by the level of technology?
They are very impressed, and everybody gives us a very positive feedback. I can't say enough how many comments we get as far as the wow for the technology.
And so I guess the $1 million question, right, that we always talk about and argue about on ODWire, is there an ROI for doing something like this, right? Because that's ultimately, at the end of the day, what people talk about. So what do you think after now implementing this in multiple locations? Have you been able to see a positive ROI from it yet?
Absolutely. I'm able to increase the number of patients that I'm seeing, and therefore increases the revenue. My practice is quite new for the last 3 and a little bit years, but we are fully booked. And so we are seeing patients probably every half hour in every single office. And for me to be able to actually train the staff and take the length of time to train somebody to do a refraction is quite impossible to provide that great patient encounter, great patient experience, and have the consistent results.
Great. And one other question, and I guess this one's probably for Melissa, talking about integration with EMRs and so forth. I'm sure people are wondering, because this device, I'm sure, generates a lot of data. How does that actually work?
It actually sends the data over in an XML format, and we work closely with the different EMRs to make sure the information is coming across that the doctors want to see. So that's not a problem. And something else, speaking of telemedicine, the doctors can actually remote into the iRefract themselves if they're wanting to double check the refraction, and take a look at it themselves. They can do that.
Really? So they can actually get into the device itself, not just look at the report from the device, but actually log into the device to actually see what it did?
They can, absolutely.
Huh.
So
very cool. Wow. Great. Well, Dr. Rasa, Melissa, thank you for this. This has been tremendous. I mean, if people are interested in learning more about this and actually giving it a shot, what's the next step?
They can reach out on our website, which is Luneau Technology USA. They can book a demo, and I'll be happy to take them through the iRefract. If they actually have questions that they want to talk to a doctor, Dr. Rasa is actually available. I can put her in touch with a doctor who's interested in our device.
So you're going to be the one personally doing the demo, it sounds like.
I am. Yeah, absolutely. And I do it remotely from my home. I'm not even with the device. So.
Oh, for real? So you're actually driving remotely. That's crazy. Wow. Okay, well, great. So everyone who's watching, you now know exactly who to talk to if you want to get the demo going. So, I hope everyone's learned a little bit here today. And obviously the conversation will continue online. So Dr. Rasa, Melissa, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.